Hi, welcome to our course on Exploratory Data Analysis with Excel. In this class, we are going to study how to visualize data frequency of categorical variables.
In this class, we are going to use the Netflix user-based dataset that is available in Kaggle if you want to download it. The link is here on the description of this video. Let's start having another look in our dataset. We already used this dataset to discuss descriptive statistics. This is here in this sheet of our spreadsheet. And what we want to do now is to calculate and plot the frequency distribution of categorical variables and also to build their contingency tables. We have a number of categorical variables here like subscription type, country, gender, device. If we want to have a better knowledge of what we have, what categories we have for each of these variables, we can simply select the filter option here, and then we can look at the category values that we have here. So for variable country, we have a number of countries here from Australia to the United States in alphabetical order, genders, and the devices we have here for different types of devices. To illustrate what we want to do, let's work with the variable subscription type, and we are going to build the frequency distribution manually using some functions that we have here in Excel, and then we are going to use a pivot table as well. The first thing that we'll have to do is to find the unique values or the categories of the variable that I'm going to study. To do that, we are going to the data menu and we are going to use the advanced filter. Right, so in the advanced filter, first thing that I have to do is I have to take the variable that I want to study, which is our variable subscription type. And now I'm going to choose a place to put that information. And I'm going to choose a place here to put that information. And I'm going to choose only the unique records which corresponds to the categories that I want to place there. Okay, so I've got my variable here and its categories. Now, the following thing that I have to do is to count the number of objects in each of these categories. And to do that, I'm going to use an Excel function, which is the count, and this is a conditional count, right? So the first thing is I'll take again all the values and I have to count how many objects I have in each of these categories. And the first category is basic, right? So I have 999 objects in that category. And here I can do the same for all the other categories. I just have to fix a few things here. And the second category is premium. And the third category is standard. Okay, so standard category. Right, so here I have the count to the right. Okay, now that I have the frequency table built, and this is the absolute frequency, all I have to do is to insert my graph. In this case, as this is a categorical variable, I am going to use a bar chart instead of a histogram as we used with the numerical variables. Here I can put count. If I want, I can put the name of the variable, subscription type, and it's already categorized, and we have the frequency of each of these categories, right? So this is a way a bit more complicated to do what we want to do, because we first have to find the unique values or the categories of the variable, and then we have to apply a conditional count for the range of values that I have, which correspond to the objects that I have in my data set, and I have to calculate it for each of the categories, right? But I can also do this very same thing using a simple pivot table, which is a very powerful tool that we have here in Excel. And so the first thing that we'll do is we'll take here this variable. I'll put this variable. I will place the pivot table here in the existing worksheet, and in the very top of my worksheet, right? So here I have the variable. I'll put this variable here as row, and I'll also put this variable here as the values. And let's be sure if we are doing the right thing. Yes, we are counting the values, right? So as you can see, with this simple process, we were able to plot here the pivot table for this variable. And I could do the same thing for any other variable. For example, let's take now variable country, and let's build the pivot table for the variable country. In this case, we chose it. Variable country is there in the existing worksheet. Let's choose a location here to place it. Let's place it here. And okay, now we'll do the same. Take country here and country values here, right? And note that if you wanted to do that on the other way, which is manually, I would have to individually calculate the count in inserting the countif function for each of these values. And here we have 10 different countries, so we would have to do it a number of times, give us much more work, right? So it's much easier to do it this way. And now that we have this table, we can simply plot the frequency distribution for them here, right? And here we can play the variables, we can select different countries if we want. So we have some more flexibility while working with the pivot table and while creating the frequency distribution of categorical variables using the pivot table. Well, now that we have seen how to create the frequency distribution of categorical variable either manually or using the pivot table, the next step is to study how to do the contingency table, also known as a cross tabulation or cross tab, right? And the contingency table, this is a type of table in a matrix format that displays the multivariate frequency distribution of variables. So let's go into it now. The contingency table is created between two variables. So one of the things that we are going to do here, let me move this frequency distribution here to the bottom. Let's create the contingency table between variables subscription type and country. Okay, so let's work with these two variables here again. And we'll do that using the pivot table as we did here, because it's much easier to do it this way, right? To make the process easier as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a column here, and I'm going to move country here to there. And okay, so I've got the two variables that I'm going to create the contingency table, one next to the other. To do our contingency table, we are going to work with the country versus the subscription type. It means that we will want to know for each country how many people have each of the different subscription types. The tool that we are going to use is a pivot table because it's much easier and faster to use pivot tables, we are going to create this in cell R2. Okay, so let's move there to the top of our table. And now we are going to have our country here as the rows, our subscription type here as the columns, and the count of the subscription type as the values here. As we can see, we observe that, for example, in Australia, we have 31 objects in the subscription type basic, 101 in premium, and 51 in standard, with a total of 183 instances of our data set in Australia. And the same type of reading can be made for all the countries that we have here and all the subscription types. So this is a very simple and straightforward way of creating contingency tables in Excel. Thank you for watching.